All right, everyone, let's get into our next lecture, which is issues in sport. This lecture is paired with your uh, current issues paper, but it's a group assignment, and I will be going through all the different issues, and you and your group will pick one that you find to be fascinating, and it does not have to be from this lecture. It can be another one that's listed on your assignment that's posted on Canvas for this week. And so you can read through all the assignment guidelines, directions, etc. And this lecture will help you kind of figure out which issue you may be excited to write about. So we're going to talk about lots of different issues. So you can kind of look at those learning outcomes, but it's really just issues in sports, starting at youth sports, going all the way up to Olympics. And so first, starting with youth sports, I've had several students find this topic to be fascinating, maybe because they related to it in regard to a parent that they had while they were playing up that had a big impact in their life. So let's look at parental goals for youth sports. Most of the times, parents put kids in sports because they want their children to be active. They maybe share the same interest in that same sport. Maybe they played it as well. They also want their children to perfect a sport skill, improve their health, and develop teamwork, self-discipline, sportsmanship, cooperation, all the things that come with working with other people on a team. Children's goals are a little different. They probably just want to spend time with friends. They may want to have something to do after school. They probably want to feel successful and then have a chance to play throughout grade school as they get older. What's the first question parents ask a child after a game that they did not attend? It's probably, did you win the game? But what should they be asking instead? They should probably asking, did you have fun? Or did you play hard? Those two questions are more important than did you actually win? Children get a lot of pressure from parents to win games, and they also get a lot of pressure from their parents to do year-round training to go to college to play a sport, and that usually results in early specialization. So, specialization is where they just play one sport, and sometimes children do this too early, where research actually suggests that we should not specialize in a sport until age 15. And so, for me, 15 was like sophomore year of high school, I guess. Or for some people, it could be freshman year of high school. Maybe it's freshman, or yeah, for some people, it could be, yeah, freshman, sophomore year. Anyway, what the research says is that we should play multiple sports up until about age 15. And then age 15, we probably figure out what sport we may excel at the most, where we have the most skill, or maybe where we enjoy it the most, have the most fun. And so that's where we can or should specialize if we want to. We obviously don't have to. So how do you feel about this age 15 for sport specialization, where you only play one sport? And have you experienced this? And so I've had several students also write their paper on sport specializing too young and only playing one sport their entire life and how that actually impacted them. This also goes back to being a specialist versus a generalist in terms of sport participation. Some other problems we see in youth sports, we already talked about pressure to win is probably too high, poorly trained coaches, especially at the younger levels, parental interference, loss of values or ideals. I hope this doesn't really happen often. Injury risk ignored, same thing. I hope that's not true. Violence, gamemanship seems this like with youth sports, you usually don't see that, but it's possible. That we talked about the sport specialization. This happened to me a lot is where the only skilled play and we also only played one position, where we were really good at this one spot and we didn't really move around and play anything else. I think when we're younger than like middle school, like in elementary school, I think we should play lots of different positions instead of just that one. Financial burden on parents when you have to go do travel sports, and then sometimes it doesn't become fun anymore. Watch this YouTube video here at the bottom, and it shows some research that's done in youth sports. Here's another video, but I'm not going to play it on my screen because when I publish these YouTube videos, it thinks that I'm taking this content and trying to take it as my own. So play it on yours, and it's a cute little video, and it has professional athletes talking about youth sports and what is most important. Next is interscholastic sports. So, with interscholastic sports, important educational curricular activities for students. I think playing sports is really great if you have that opportunity. It helps develop sports skills. You learn a lot of different values working with players, people, maybe people that you didn't actually become friends with in high school, but they're still on your team. There's a lot of respect that goes on there when you have to work with somebody on the field that you may not be close to off the field. Helps you to stay active and fit. And it's really fun. It's supervised, organized, and it's usually in a safe environment. But again, there are problems with interscholastic sports. So playing sports in middle school and high school, we get with the emphasis on women winning, and coaches' jobs also probably depend on winning, especially at really good, 4A, 5A schools. Year-round conditioning programs. I thought this was actually a good thing. We had a program come to our school in the summer. And it wasn't just for like soccer or volleyball players, it was for all athletes. We had football, basketball, everybody was out there who played a sport. And we did a conditioning program in the summer. Like we had to be there at like 7 a.m. And we were trained for, several hours, but it was really fun. Specialization, we talked about that. Athletes expecting to play while hurt. Again, I hope not, but maybe this happens more so in high school. Drug use and abuse, I know that starts early. And then unsportsmanlike conduct starts to occur, like poor ethical decisions in sports. And then the no pass, no play, where if you fail a class in high school, you can't play your sport. We also see lack of qualified coaches, especially at like the freshman level, JV level. We also see them teaching classes, so they're working, full time doing class work and playing or teaching sports. Emphasis on values, may not have a lot of value teaching. Parental support, hopefully we have parental support. Coping behaviors for stress and mental health issues. This is a really big deal now. And I'm hoping that a lot of schools have in place like counseling and proper strategies for managing stress and anxiety in sports. We may also see lack of funding, equipment, facilities, and school support. Depending on how much money the school has, you may not have the best weight room, may not have the best equipment. And so that's really hard when it comes to playing sports. So I want you to think about if you experienced any of this during the interscholastic sports that you played growing up. Next, we have intercollegiate athletics. Maybe you were a intercollegiate athlete or you have some experience with this. Some academic issues we see are preferred admissions where a student's admitted and um, they don't have the grades to actually be there, but they're really good in their sport. Missed classes and then not making up the classes or the coursework, freshman eligibility, excessive time spent for the sport, again, not coming to class, unearned grades, lack of progress towards a degree or failure to earn a degree to where they think they're going to go and turn professional, which is a really great ideal to have, but you also need to have a backup plan. And a lot of these athletes don't think that far ahead, where they think they're just going to go to the NFL or go to the NBA or go play professional golf, and they don't make progress towards a degree, or they just go early and don't even earn a degree, which is fine. But what happens when you get cut from your sport for an injury and you don't have a degree to fall back on? And so those are some big issues we see. Another is the loss of educational or ethical values. Recruiting violations are very, very common. There's so many scandals in the media about recruiting violations. Loss of institutional control to where athletics is like its own little community and the university is like separate from it. And so that can be really tough. A lot of pressure to win, a lot of media exposure for coaches and athletes, especially the really popular ones, gambling. Sports become a business and not seen as something that is supplemental to the athlete. And then we still see drug use and abuse, even though there's lots of strict NCAA rules in place. There is another scandal story about college admissions, and this YouTube video here at the bottom is really cool. It's a YouTube film. It's called Operation Varsity Blues, to where some famous celebrities they got their children into colleges by paying someone to get them in when they weren't actually admitted. And so they call these side doors to where they don't get in based on their own merit and they get in due to like money and cheating. And so it's a really fascinating little YouTube video here at the bottom, and you might have seen it in the media in the news several years ago. But it's really fascinating. Another big issue we see is college or people getting admitted into college saying they were an athlete when they actually were not. Another big one is paying college athletes, the NIL rules. And so what's hard with NIL and the paying of college athletes is the rules are constantly changing. And so I have to stay up to date on all the new rules that come into place almost every semester. There's a new rule that comes in. And so new NIL rules, basically pursuing NIL opportunities without limitations imposed by the NCAA, conferences, or universities. So now the athlete can make their own decisions and they don't have to actually follow what their university or wherever their conference or the NCAA actually says. And so these include endorsement deals, sponsorships, commercial activities, and the rule also fortifies compliance with Title IX. So they are in agreement with Title IX and working with Title IX to make sure everything is fair in regards to NIL opportunities. We see there's states that are signed into NIL laws, and that's where it gets confusing, is the NCAA has an NIL like law, and then each state also has their own NIL guidelines. And then so you can sign into it, you can propose your own law, you can repeal it, you don't have a law. So that's again where it gets very convoluted. But let's just simplify it. And I have several YouTube videos down here at the bottom that help to simplify NIL. And first, I don't think I even mentioned NIL, if you're not familiar, is name, image, and likeness. And I forgot to say, that's how these athletes are making money. They're making money off their name, their image, and their likeness. And so what they can do is accept direct payments for promotional activities where they can go and sign autographs. They can give away like athletic memorabilia for them. They can host like sports camps. I think I have kind of all that up here. So they can receive free sponsored product services in exchange for promotion, affiliate money from social media. So we know lots of social media influencers who are now their people send them their products and they promote it and they get paid. Earning or becoming an ambassador for a brand or a business. So if you remember, like Patrick Mahomes, he was an ambassador for Nissan in Lubbock. So Nissan McGavick, and so they paid Patrick Mahomes when he was still in college here at Texas Tech. And so some other ones would be like hosting sports camps and getting paid to do like a summer camp. If you're a college athlete, doing that for kids in your city. Some other ones, I think I've kind of mentioned several, but there's lots of different ways that these athletes can earn money. Like I said, those two YouTube clips at the bottom will discuss that kind of more in detail. So, what I want you to discuss and maybe think about, if this is a topic that you find fascinating, how has this impacted college athletes, teams, and universities? Because now we can offer offer these athletes money to come play at Texas Tech or to come play at whatever college. And students are transferring colleges due to getting a better deal. And so that can become an issue. Should this have happened years ago? Should this have always been allowed, or should this have never happened? And so if you're interested in this topic, think about like, should athletes have always been getting paid in college? And then what about those? Is it fair to those who don't get the best NIL deals? Obviously, name, image, and likeness, you have to be popular. And so is it just a popularity contest for those getting the most money? We do know that colleges like Texas Tech is now trying to raise money for and get more money for female sports teams. Like I know softball. And we have obviously an amazing softball team that almost won the national championship this past summer. And so um, Texas Tech is actively trying to get money to pay these athletes. But then it talks about, or there's lots of different articles that you can look into, but obviously football gets the most money, followed by basketball. And then we look at probably softball, baseball. And so again, is it fair? There's lots of different ethical questions that go into paying college athletes this NIL deal. And so again, if you're fascinated by this, watch those YouTube videos and answer these questions and discuss with your group if this is something you want to write about. Next one, this is extended college playoffs. And so if you follow college playoffs, I haven't updated this, but this was for the 24-25 NCAA season, where instead of a four-team playoff, it moved to a 12-team playoff, which was kind of a big deal. It caused some issues for some other college teams who thought they should have deserved it and didn't get into the 12 spots or one of the seeds, I guess. But think about if you really like college football, especially going into the playoffs, thinking about for this semester, if this is something you want to discuss. Another I find pretty interesting and eligibility requirements to go pro. And so football, in order to go to the NFL, you have to have at least 3 years of college. They do not make you graduate. Basketball, you don't even have to go to college. You just have to go out of high school. You just have to be 19 years old. And out of high school for 1 year, I guess is what it says. MLB, 17 years old and graduated from high school. No, they don't even need college. Soccer, 2 years of college, which I like having at least a little bit of college. NHL, you have to have played on some junior or collegiate league, but you still only have to be like 80 to 20 or 80, 18 to 20 years old. Golf, you have to be invited from college, like play in college and then get invited to the PGA to play in a tournament, or you can earn a tour card from going to the Corn Ferry Tour and then earn that card to go to the PGA. So these are just a few sports. I don't even have females. I'm sorry. I just have male sports on here, but you could look at female eligibility requirements to go pro. And I know they're different, even though they play the same sport. And so again, if you find this interesting, maybe choose this as your topic. Next is talking about mental health. And so this here just looks at there are really high levels of mental health, anxiety, depression, issues due to millennials and Gen Zs experiencing this strive for perfection. Like we're just trying to be perfect, and we grew up in a life of social media, especially the Gen Zers, and they are so exposed in social media, and that can cause mental health issues if you can't struggle or you're struggling or can't handle it. And so it says up here, 1 in 4 will experience depression. That's the same rate of like the average population. So college athletes, 1 in 4. It's the same as everybody. So we're all the same when it comes to mental health. This here looks at mental or athletes, mental health, struggling, feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, lonely, hopeless, etc. NCAA, I think, is doing a good job based on this statement. They came out very recently within the past few years where they're recognizing the importance of promoting and protecting mental wellness of student athletes. They're trying to create healthy environments. They're identifying those who have symptoms and disorders. They're finding referral pathways to qualified providers, and then making sure that the licensure of those providers are available to oversee those and manage mental health care. And so I think they're working hard to try to combat this, and maybe not combat it, but help those who are struggling. And so, two questions ask yourself here. What are some reasons student athletes and just college students in general are experiencing these high rates of anxiety and depression? What else can we do to help those who are suffering? And so I have a YouTube video right here. There's lots of mental health issues in sports. We know Simone Biles, who bailed out of the Olympics a few years ago because she was experiencing what she called the twisties and could not perform. We know some tennis players. Not refer, refuse to do interviews post match because they have too much anxiety to do an interview. We've seen lots of mental health issues in sports, and it's maybe not becoming more prevalent, but it's becoming more talked about, and that's great. But let's talk about some ways that we can help people and students who are suffering. And so if you find this topic interesting, write about it. Next is injuries. Um, Injuries in sports, two most common, knees is the first one. And so ACL injuries especially, but anything from ACL, MCL, LCL, PCL, meniscus tears, dislocations. A lot of sports require healthy knees, anything that requires jumping, cutting, quick stop type movements. And my question is there anything that can be done to reduce knee injuries? Did you experience one? Because I did in high school twice. And I interned at a ACL injury prevention program, and this prevention program helped with high school soccer and volleyball players learn them techniques to cut better, to maneuver their body better, to strengthen their lower body, to reduce the prevalence or minimize their ACL injury risk. Next is concussions. Most common football, rugby, basketball, hockey, cheerleading, soccer, and boxing. We can see the stats right there about how prevalent they are. Can anything be done to reduce the prevalence of concussions? There are two videos right here that you can watch if you're interested in concussion rates and concussion issues, and the CTE, which is what it's called when you get too many concussions and experience dementia. And so there's some research out there about concussions, especially with football and the head-to-head. And you can think about what has been put in place, such as rules, different guidelines we see in sports to prevent these high concussion rates. Next talks about Title IX. And so, kind of to preface, Title IX, it's not an issue. It's great when Title IX came into place in 1972. You can read right here just kind of what Title IX is all about, and then things to know about Title IX. Just kind of this just goes over like generally. I also have a clip down here at the bottom that discusses Title IX. But these are some final interpretations, and these interpretations talk about how financial assistance should be available on a substantially proportional basis between all sports. Males and females should receive equivalent treatment, benefits, opportunities, including scholarship money. Interest abilities of male and females are equally accommodated. Okay. And so to simplify it even more, every university has to pass this three-pronged test, and they only have to pass one of the three. And they just have to meet this every single year. There's a Title IX office that gets reviewed, and the Title IX office will present all of the things they've been doing to accommodate the underrepresented student. And that's usually, I guess, the underrepresented sex is usually the female athletes. So participation opportunity is substantial, proportionate to how many students we have enrolled at Texas Tech. Must be continual practice of program expansion due to interest and abilities. Are we accommodating, are we expanding programs based on the interest and abilities of the undergraduate enrollment? And then have those interests and abilities been effectively accommodated? So are we continually working to accommodate the interests and abilities of students who want to play certain sports in college? This video here is really cool. It talks about the effects of Title IX and how has Title IX actually affected females. It talks about soccer and how soccer, Title IX, after Title IX, there was a huge explosion in females participating in soccer. And it's a very cool video, especially if you're a soccer player. So you can watch this on your sides and play that for you because it's cool. Next is just kind of talking about Title IX. Like, how has it changed the face of college sports? We know that in the Olympics, the female athletes keep the competitors and the winners continue to rise and rise and rise from the very first Olympics. We just keep growing and growing and growing. And is that because of Title IX? And then how has Title IX impacted other aspects of female lives? So if you're interested in Title IX, you can look into this topic. Next is drug use in sports. Drug use is prevalent, and unfortunately, starts early as middle school and high school. What influences athletes to dabble in drug use? Influenced by professional athletes, or influenced by friends' decisions. We look at why they do this. Improving performance was the number one reason, followed by pain relief, and then look how they appear. Here is the 24-25 NCAA banned substances. I don't think that will change for the 25-26 season. One thing they did take off recently was cannabinoids. Cannabinoids is marijuana, and so that is no longer considered a banned substance during off-season drug testing for the NCAA. But that doesn't mean that the university can't impose their own drug testing rules. And so the university, like Texas Tech athletes, are still drug tested throughout the entire season, but the NCAA will do off-season drug testing, and that's where cannabinoids are no longer considered banned. But the university can still ban cannabinoids in season during the sport. This is kind of cool. Medals of dishonor. It's those who their medal was stripped, taken away because of drug tests that came out after they competed and after they won a gold medal. So how they do this is they save blood and urine samples, and they can save those for years and years and years. And as new technology comes out, new technology that can detect the minute drugs in someone's blood or urine, they can retest these samples every time a new detection comes out. And if they find that there was the presence of a certain drug in their blood or urine, they can strip those medals. Doesn't matter how long ago. And so they have done that several times. I don't have any more data from since London 2012 Olympics, but I'm looking into getting more data. But I do have some cool YouTube videos that you can look at, and it talks about how drug use is very common in sports, and everybody will try to get a competitive edge, regardless of if the substance is banned or not. So coming into kind of finishing up with our Olympics, and this kind of just talks about first Olympic Games held in Olympia, 776 BC. So just to kind of recall where we were, this YouTube video here talks about the history of the Olympic Games to now. It's pretty quick, but you can watch this little Olympic game video. First modern games, just to recall, is 1896. And then the first time females were allowed to compete was 1900. We see after 1500 years of the Olympics being banned, they reopened the games for people to compete in Athens. Olympics are pretty amazing. I love watching the Olympics. So last summer we watched the Paris Olympics, and this year, or not this year, sorry, next Olympics will be in LA in 2028. The goal is to promote peace across the world, understanding goodwill through educational value of sport, to spread education and talk about physical activity and sport performance, link people in friendship, solidarity, fair play, and raise the standards of physical achievement because we still have world records being broken. There's lots of issues, though, that we do see with sports. Politics, current wars that are going on, commercialization, drug use is always there, the security issues, strike actions, climate where it can be really, really hot. Usually it's never a cold issue. It's usually always extreme heat. Sanitation issues. If you've heard about the issues where the swimmers had to swim in the Seine River in Paris, and the river didn't pass the sanitation, and so they had to postpone the triathlon because of the poor sanitation. And even then they got a big rainstorm, and then it actually passed. Again, crazy. And then transgender policies. And so I'm not spending a lot of time right here, but I've had several students discuss Olympic game issues, especially transgender policies. So, if you're familiar with Leah Thomas, who was a swimmer, and she was a swimmer in the NCAA, and she was a male who turned into a female and still competed with the female athletes. Well, other swimmers and other athletes, and the NCAA sued the NCAA for like wrongful discrimination or Title IX issues. And they won the lawsuit, and then they ended up stripping Leah Thomas of all of the medals that she won. She was a male who turned into a female and beat all the females, obviously. And so transgender issues in the Olympics are still big. I will say one thing is that the Paris 2024 Olympics, instead of making one like blanket rule about transgender athletes, they left it up to the governing body of each sport. So, like track and field had their own decision, weightlifting had their own decision, swimming had their own decision, whatever. And so that was really interesting to follow and see which sports governing bodies actually banned the transgender athletes and which didn't. And so it'll be interesting to see for the LA 2028 Olympics what will happen. So if you're interested in those transgender policies, you can look at that. Drug use in the Olympics or any other kind of issues going on. And then last is following up with older adults. When we age, we usually stop playing sports, except for these amazing individuals who have joined the World Masters Athletics or the National Senior Games. And these are opportunities for seniors to compete. We know that older adults are living longer lives, and we need to have an emphasis on healthy aging. We're all kinesiology majors or minors, and so this just basically is geared towards us helping older adults live longer through physical activity, rehabilitation, medicine, etc. And so World Masters Athletics, you have to be 35 or older to compete. National Senior Game is 50 plus. And this YouTube video here at the bottom shows how amazing these older adults are having an opportunity to compete after high school, after college, after the Olympics. And so again, it's something that you should watch and look into. But that is it for this lecture. So I hope you were inspired by one of the topics. And if you weren't inspired by one, there's a list of examples on the assignment page in Canvas that gives you more examples of things you can write about for your assignment. If you have any questions on it, reach out to me via email. Okay, great. We'll talk to you later.